Oh, right, the zoning board. We're on. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our June zoning board meeting. I'll just grab my agenda here. All right. Good. You're all prepared and ready to go. First order of business tonight is our first order of business tonight is a decision for Build Coastal LLC, 226 Old Riverhead Road. Nobody's here. Okay, well, we have a decision that the board came to approve that variance request. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept that variance as written. Second by Jim. All in favor? Okay. As you see tonight, one of our board members is out, so if anybody has any reason that they don't want to go forward with their application tonight, just let us know. We'll hold it over for that reason. Okay, we go right into our holdovers. The first holdover we have is Michael Jesselson, 49 Bayfield Lane. Okay. So we have several variances. This has been on our agenda for quite a while now, so rather than read everything in, I think I'd like to just get an update.
Sounds great. My name is Jackie Morley. I'm here on behalf of the client, Toomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Cordero Riverhead. Absolutely. So we were previously here in December, and at that time, the client has chosen to step back for a minute and reassess the location of the accessory structure that is proposed to see if we can find a more compliant location for it. The redesign has just been taking some time, and they've been going through different iterations of that. So the goal is to come forward with something that at least takes away one of the requests for a variance, at the very least, to make the application more compliant, as I said, and
Okay.
require
So decrease the amount of variances
Yeah.
required. There's quite a lot happening on that.
quite a lot going on. Yep.
Okay.
We acknowledge it's been taking some time, and we of course apologize for that, but they are working through it. As you know, of course, there have been a series of architects that have worked on this project and this property with this owner, and this has been going on for some time, as we know, as we discussed in the previous hearing. So while we're working through that, we do just request an additional adjournment, possibly to August. Just because I personally, I know our attorney schedules for next month are a little,
Right?
Yeah.
Summertime changes a lot of things too.
Yes.
I understand that. We're just trying to move forward with this. It's been on our agenda for a long time.
right.
When you work with the architects, I hope that your office is able to give them some input of what's happened in the past and how we're going.
Absolutely. And we've been in discussion with the building permit, of course, as well. And I believe our office spoke to Brad as recently as,
You're in touch
I think
with
it was,
Well,
yeah,
I'll
I think
go
it was,
inspect it, so having somebody, some
Yep.
input from him because
Yep.
there's, okay,
I believe that they spoke as recently as, I think it was last week. So,
okay.
yeah, we're
Last
open
week.
communication. Yeah. So like I said, I mean, they're really trying to reorganize this and make it a little, because as you recall, we had the accessory structure was far into was close to the existing tennis court and in front of the proposed
Oh, we remember.
dwelling. It's all,
remember
yeah,
it.
you recall. So
Yeah.
we're trying to push it to where it'll be behind the front line of the building, and then the dwelling, and then it'll make it hopefully at least allay at least one of those required variances. So
Back the accessory studio, so what you're talking
yes, we're looking at trying to have it to apply for it, obviously and also looking into making sure it's without plumbing. That was, I know, another issue that was raised, but have it behind the front line of the dwelling.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, we look forward to seeing this.
we look forward to providing it to you.
Right? Okay, very good.
And so if that's is August, we'll be able to be on the August hearing, or is that
No, that could work.
okay?
That'd be good because we know where we're going and hopefully they'll be ready to go in August. We can go forward with this because it'll be coming up on a year then, right?
We would be, yes.
So that'd be good. Okay.
Great. Well, we appreciate your consideration of it and your time.
Jackie, I didn't hear your last name. I'm sorry.
My last name is Morley, Morley. Okay, great. Thank you all.
So I'd like to make a motion that we hold this over for all purposes until our August meeting. Second by Joe, all good?
Aye.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Doing good, yeah.
No, that's good. First week and a half is.
No, yeah. It's still.
I'm on my bike.
I just want to see you in the supermarket.
No. Couldn't wait to throw that thing away.
Okay, next one, our next holdover is Mark and Christine Tobin, 185 Dune Road. Okay, we've been through this many times, read this into the record a couple of times already, so.
Been through it once, I
Good
adjourned
deal.
too, I apologize for those two adjournments. Nicholas Vera Architect, 120 Middle Road for the owners. I submitted, I believe it was on May 15th, I gave everybody a stack of information, some exhibits. I'm sorry to bombard you with all of that. Just trying to, show the various roof decks that exist in the area. Some with permits back in the day, who knows, some might not. I included application, approval, and the drawings for 317 Dune Road, which was approved. I don't know what the date that was, but that was the Anderson residence, which has a very, very similar roof deck on the back of their structure on the south side. I believe that application approval was back in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So that was one of the things that I had discussed at the last meeting that I was here, that we did get an approval similar to what we were seeking on Toby. And again, just want to reiterate that there was a mistake made during the application process. That was not picked up by myself or Paul Houlihan back in 2018. I think I submitted that letter and that correspondence to you, along with subsequent requests and letters and correspondence from Brad Hammond, our current building inspector. I do believe you asked me why there was such a wait from the time that I got the inspection letter from Brad, which I believe was January of 2020. Probably, when I first looked at it, was probably ready to take care of it, but then we all know that March 13th, March 11th to be specific, because it was my son's birthday, everything closed down with COVID. During that time, we all suffered greatly with, whatever went on, including, for me, losses of family members, including my mom. So I think, getting back into everything, took me a while to really, realize and start this process again. So my bad, okay, I'm not no excuse for that. And again, I think the drawings that were submitted that were looked at by the zoning board of appeals, we did show that roof deck on our drawings, which was part of the application at that time, okay? Not realizing that it wasn't written in the decision, nor was it written in the application of the zoning board of appeals. So that's the mistake, that's my bad. Trying to move this thing forward. Again, I'm just gonna reiterate that the board said that, variances and approvals had not been granted for this type of structure. But again, I showed you that we did get an approval on 317 Dune Road, which is the Anderson residence.
What, say that again, Nick, I had trouble hearing that.
317 Dune Road, the Anderson residence, we did get an approval for that, and that
For a roof deck?
for roof deck, and that was part of the package that I gave. Okay, that decision is in there. I gave you that decision and those drawings. Okay, moving forward, if this board is looking to grant this approval, the one thing that I can offer to make this a little bit better, although you've been to the site, I'm sure, you can't even see this from the road. What you may be able to see on the west side of the property, on the west side of the building, is the glass railing that's up on that roof deck. The one thing I can offer, far short of destroying everything and taking everything down, I can make that a complete privacy wall, make it look like the siding of the house. So there is no detrimental impact to the Italientes who live next door, who were my client back in the day. I haven't heard from them. I haven't seen anything on record that they've had any kind of complaints or feel uneasy about that, but I would offer up, that, okay? I don't want to get into the situation where we had the Vivian Friedman, Bob Pollock And that's what prompted that code. You know that. That's what prompted the change in the code, okay? Okay, Bob Pollock was my client, Vivian Friedman was not.
Going
But
back
bec-
now.
yeah, I have to throw that in there because that was the reason why this code was written. Because, Bob was gonna be spying down on Vivian Friedman while she's sunbathing on her rear deck, as you recall. So, I mean, I don't want to get into that situation with that. So we can make that hidden and just offer up one side being the glass rail, the other side being, a solid wall so that there's no, far short of, ripping everything down. That's what I would like to offer to this board for consideration. So,
Tell me about what you would do to mitigate that. Go
excuse me,
back through that again.
I would remove the glass rail on the west side. Okay, because that's the only area that you can I mean, if you're on the beach, you can hardly see this thing. But if from an aerial, yes, you can see.
There's no disputing that it's beautiful. I mean, it's really.
That's not the
That's in
play.
the
I understand what's in play. The in play in here is that, we're above the second floor with the deck. Okay, and that's what's in play. And again, we raised it, a few feet higher than it was because again, I thought we had an approval for that. And again, I apologize. That's my bad. Okay,
So you'd remove the glass?
I would remove the
Would
glass.
you replace it with anything else?
I
or is it-
replace it with siding to make it look like it's part of, even put a cap on it to make it look like roof. So when they're sitting on that deck, you can't see them, okay? The glass rail is 4 feet high, so when you're sitting on a deck, you're not looking over, and somebody who's sitting on their deck on the west side of the property, although they really can't see, will not be able to see whatever activity is going up on there, whether, people are watching the sunset or watching their beautiful view, okay? And that's what I would offer far short of, ripping this whole thing apart. But I did give you some, some good photographs of roof decks that are, pretty much in your face, okay? I'd like to point out, and I know this might not have any bearing, but again, I think, the Village of West Hampton Beach, and I understand when we did implement this, there was a little bit of a, Hatfield, Smith feud at the time. Village of West Hampton Dunes allows you to put a roof deck up on the fourth floor. Quag allows you roof decks. Town of Southampton allows you roof decks, including bulkheads. They get up to that roof deck. So, and the village in there, trying to keep with, keeping the peace and making things beautiful and not too obtrusive, is probably the only village or town on the ocean that does not allow these, or in the village that does not allow these. And I understand that, and we try to, work to comply
Well,
with that. But this wasn't an in-your-face thing.
There are other villages that,
Yeah, well, a lot of villages don't even allow decks off the back of their house. Town of Southampton, Village of Southampton is one of them.
Village of North Haven does not allow.
North Haven,
second
yeah,
floor
no,
roof decks.
exactly right. That I know. Some of the villages don't even allow second floor decks, so it's kind of nice because, you don't want to be peering down on your fellow property owners. So that's my testimony. If I had any questions, if not, I would, look to close the hearing.
I've got a couple of comments.
Mhm.
Originally, some of the original drawings that I saw,
Mhm.
that, that floor was an elevation about 2 feet higher.
I believe we were a 9-foot ceiling, and I think we were at 12 feet with our original ceiling. Okay, and I think we're up to 16 feet now. I'm sorry, we went from 12 to 16. That's what it was, as I recall. I think that's what I had put in my drawer.
Well, with the drawings that I have here, it shows a 2 foot step up, from the true second floor up to what
Okay.
you might want to call the elevated.
I won't argue with now, without having it in front of me, but I'm trying to feel
And then,
for it.
and then as constructed, it's about 6 feet.
Right, so
Somehow it morphed into.
Yeah, I think
from two to six.
I think what they were looking to do at that time was to get higher windows into that living room and, again, knowing that or at least thinking that we had actually there. I think we went to 14. That's one of the drawings that I gave you. Okay. And that's to the top of the roof deck. So that means our ceiling at that time was 13 feet. So this was what I gave, and that's what was signed originally by me as part of the application. And I think that's what the building department records show. And then I did make it higher, yes. I'm not saying I didn't make it higher, but we did make it higher.
Now, 4 years ago in 2020,
Mhm.
what was the response from the owners, to their rejection of, on the, inspection during framing? It was pointed out during framing that there was a problem. with
Think-
this.
I think, Joe, at the time when I did speak to them, and again, that's, 4 years ago, and I don't remember everything that I did 4 years ago. I sent that letter off to them because I don't think, the billing department copies the clients on that. It would just be me, the applicant, as I recall. There's no CC on that letter from Brad Hammond. I probably sent it off to them, so that would have been in February sometime.
Right.
Probably didn't hear from the Tomas, or if I did, he might have said, well, let's, try to take care of this as soon as possible. And then, like I just testified, COVID hit and, out of sight, out of mind, my bad, okay? So, then Mr. Hammond reminded me probably sometime in June or July of that year that, we've got to try to move this thing forward. I probably did contact the Tobins and told them what we needed to do, so.
Well, I guess my point is, it was during framing inspection, so I mean, that was certainly the time that changes could have been made.
No doubt about it, yes.
The only way around this is really, to, eliminate it or modify it, to some degree.
Okay.
Um,
I did offer the modification that I said to make it, a little less obtrusive on the west side of the property.
Yeah.
Or should, I mean, if you look at that rear elevation now that you have open right there.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can see the extensive, nope, you just closed it. You just had it. You just had the rear elevation. May I?
Sure. Just have it open, Joe. I know.
Looking through your, that's the one with the, no, that's the original one. Joe just had open the new one, which shows the extensive glass in the back. Glasses show, sorry. Just had it. That's why I just wanted to point out that that's the elevation. I mean, to get rid of that, I mean, to modify that roof line, that's kind of be out of the question because with all the extensive custom glass that we have back there, eliminating the roof deck would be the only option. So my mitigation would be to eliminate the unsightliness if, that's what we're gonna say. By putting a privacy wall, just extending the,
Well, part of this, not just the view of the ocean, but also for the neighbors.
that's why I'm offering that one solution. Then you wouldn't see it. Then the neighbor wouldn't see it. The neighbor would think that it was a roof deck. You might be able to see somebody's head as they're walking, around up there, but, the majority of the time you're sitting down and, looking at your ocean views. So, and that's what I would look to offer.
Yeah, because some of these plans don't have that. Looking at all these drawings we got with the application,
Mhm.
the roof deck is nowhere near that high. You said these were the original ones that we're looking at.
Understood. We went from, the elevation of 14 feet high to the roof deck from the first floor to probably 16 and a half feet. So I think we raised it 30 inches, if I'm not mistaken, again, a little more extensive glass in the living room.
Now, that was based on what? That was based on the Tobin's request or based on?
No, it was based on the Tobin's, again, not, not thinking about, the fact that we, did not get this thing approved originally, okay? Just, was just out of sight and it was a slip up on my end, okay? And again, the way that was originally advertised, it wasn't on the denial letter. And those are the drawings that I submitted, so
When was this first brought to the board?
18, or I think the application went in 2017, I
No,
think.
this one, roof deck denial.
It was back in 2020, January of 2020.
No. When did we just start it again right now?
Our first hearing was March. Yeah, I wasn't here in April. April was day after that, day before I had my hip done. So we started March, I think, 15th, 17th, somewhere around there. This is our second hearing.
I know it's put off a couple of times. Well, you had.
The denial was January 25th.
I'm just looking.
What's the cost of, just eliminating this? You had to.
It would just be really taking down the railings and taking up the decking up there. I don't know what else is up there. I have not been up on that roof deck. I mean, there is obviously a door that goes up to external stairs to get to it, and that was the only way to do that. We didn't want to, penetrate the roof.
Right.
I would assume that the building inspector would make me take out the stairs for some extent, or, so we'd
But
have-
you still have your, your habitable space on that floor below completely, right?
yeah, I would, that, to take that down.
No,
would-
no, I'm not saying that, but I mean, that's still all habitable.
That's all habitable back
Okay.
down there, yeah.
You have another deck right there too, just 2 feet lower, it's coming out of the bedroom.
Well, we have the rear deck coming out of the main bedroom. Right, that's, that's your second floor deck, which is permitted. But that's,
No,
it's
no,
only,
I
it's
understand.
only 4 feet wide. It's not it's not like it's an extensive deck. Yeah. And again, if you look at the way that everything was approved originally, if you look back at that first floor plan, look at the deck that the board granted, okay? It's a very tiny deck on the first floor plan. So their outside living area is, not that large. Remember, we didn't move this house off the dune because it was a reconstruction in its existing
Yeah,
footprint.
you had to get a variance
Right,
to
right.
build it. We went
Abs-
through
yeah,
all that.
Right,
Thank you.
exactly, right. So we do have very limited deck on the south side of the house. So, this was just an extension of, outdoor, living deck.
Deck,
So,
you have to get the lower deck and then you have the upper deck.
right. Yeah, I think the lower deck is probably maybe 400
What
square
you're
feet.
talking about screening. Just
Right where you
big,
see on the left side of that photograph,
Right?
I would screen the entire west wall and just do that in siding. So it's
How,
complete.
how deep is that?
What do you mean? How deep is that? May I?
I don't have the dimensions in
Yeah,
this.
I'll do it right now. Bear with me. I'm trying to get to my second floor.
Well,
Gary, I think it's 16 feet or it might be 20 feet.
16 or 20.
I got it right here. It's,
So
yeah, it's about 16 feet. It's 16 feet till we come out to the platform of the steps to get up to it. So, but I would do that entire wall. So probably about 24 feet of privacy wall or extension wall so that it wouldn't have a glass railing on it. So we're talking about the west side of the west wall.
mhm.
And that deck is flush with the rear wall of that house. There's no extension, there's no, cantilever over that. So it does end at the rear of the house. And that is, yes, here it is. I got the dimensions here. So it's actually 17 feet to where the stairs are. So that area up there is 17 by 13.
One other question for you, Nick. I mean, I don't have the final plans here for the Anderson project. You're saying that we approved. I have the decision here, but I don't see the plans. I want
thought
to
I-
see what we approved on the Anderson
I
project.
thought I submitted that as part of exhibit, let's see here.
Yeah, I-
Plans, exhibit N. I have Anderson plans as exhibit N. And I'm
Is that
just
right?
dropping everything all over the place.
You guys have exhibit?
Yeah,
I have. No. Oh. Here it is.
Trying to see if I have another set of Anderson for you here.
Mhm.
You have an N but no N.
Actually, I haven't. Don't.
You have an N?
Okay.
You have an N,
I
Jerry?
think so.
You have a second floor plan on there?
You want to take a look at this and see? Because.
Be right there.
Oh, I have it too. It's on the back side, exactly.
Yeah, so Anderson is 11.5 feet. Original application we had here was 12. Here, it's exactly on.
You got it outlined there as a roof.
Right, second floor plan. So the Anderson deck is. It's 15 feet wide, 10, 18, 23, 28 feet deep. So it's much bigger.
Where is it in relation to the house? Because on this,
It's on the.
on this
south-
plan, look at that.
On the south, it's 11.5 feet, top above the first floor is here, 11.5 feet. You have
What is
9
all
foot
of
plate
this?
heights. So you can see the step up. We have 9 foot plate heights on the first floor.
Right?
So this is an 11 foot plate height. So it's 2 feet there. And the point is.
I guess we're
it's-
looking at a different, a different description what we consider a roof deck, because that's well below the roof of
Yes, it is, but it's still, I mean, under the definition of the code, the deck, any deck on the second floor has to be at the second floor, no higher. That's higher than the second floor.
no more than 6 feet.
Well, that's not 6 feet higher. The code reads, the second floor deck can only match the second floor, can't be higher than the second floor. So that's higher than the second floor.
Yes, so on Anderson, we called out that variance.
Right. We did call out the variance.
Building plans match the. We're- we left with the feet higher than the second.
And I actually specifically,
Significant.
yeah, yes, it is
It's
less.
significant, right?
It's-
Intrusive
It is
on what
less,
you're-
right.
in this- Okay.
Well, someone's gotta take responsibility for, these changes, that's the thing, going from 2 feet to 6 feet and no response on the framing inspection, failure. Those are the problems.
I'm just- I made my offer. I tell you,
Yeah.
Either, we moving forward, you allow me to do what I said I could do, or
Yeah.
it gets eliminated. That's, I think those are no choice. I'm not gonna lower the roof. I mean, I can take out those windows, that's for sure. That's way too costly. If they wanna give up their second floor roof deck.
Well, how would you, sitting in our place, how are you gonna justify forgiving something like this when we've denied this in the past to other applicants?
Well, again, it wasn't denied recently with the Anderson, okay? And again, I probably put that at 11.5 feet or whatever it is because, prevailing winds coming out of the southwest, thinking about all these things. No, and I think about all those things. Don't take that too lightly. We think about those things all the time. And have another architect who's sitting here and will tell you the same thing. You design things around sun and wind and rain. So,
Okay.
the fact that we were looking for, some additional decking because, we were limited on the first floor. In fact, we took away some house to get some additional decking on the first floor. And we did the same thing at Anderson. So that gave us some additional decking, knowing that we can't go any further south because of the height of the dune and locations of the dune. So, this was one of the solutions to get additional decking. And it was part of the drawings that were submitted to the zoning board of appeal, just wasn't advertised. And again, I don't, and don't take this the wrong way, I don't see anybody here, nor do we have any, record from people that we notified, especially, the people to the west who would have the biggest impact. And I think, in fairness to you, if we take away the glass wall, so that deck is not in the face, and it was, sort of like the Vivian Friedman concern, when they're sitting down there, you don't see people up there. That would be,
Maybe a agreement advertise a house.
I know that. I know.
I remember all of that.
Yeah, I know.
understand.
Yeah, again, and that's that's the
How
reason
big is
why,
that wall?
excuse me?
How high is the wall that you're talking about sealing off?
I think I had it at 40 inches, but I think it'll finish with a cap on it at about 44, maybe even 48. So,
Four
So
foot.
it's a
4 foot.
here it is, right
there.
So, when you're sitting down.
It doesn't look good because you're leaning over
Oh,
it,
it's-
looking down. The deck next door. It's not a good look, Nick. But that's the point, is it doesn't really do anything.
If I'm sitting
So
down,
it keeps them from seeing your bathing suit, but you're looking down at the neighbor next door.
they want to look at the ocean. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see.
Oh,
When we talk about, you guys do all the time. We think about, you're blocking my view. You say, "Hey, right there, your view is not there." That's what you paid for. Who cares about the house next door? They're not blocking your view. They were there. So, I'm trying to do a little more private. You want me to make the wall a little bit higher? We
I'm not,
can't
I'm not
because,
saying anything.
I would need a variance to extend that wall up higher than the, elevation 40.
No matter what you ask for, it sets precedent. So
I understand. But I think we already set the
it's a
precedent.
it becomes a recipe. It's like, all right, if I put a 40-inch wall on one side,
Mhm.
then I can get a variance. And that's the difficulty.
That, I
Character of the community is not just about, well, this one neighbor didn't show up to object. It's about creating a pattern, which then becomes the next house and the next house after that. And all of a sudden, there's a recipe for how do you get a variance to put up a second floor deck.
But again, I don't think this is an in-your-face type of deck like some of the ones that I showed you that are in the village, okay? That have stairs going up to these decks, that have, white painted wood railings going around them, and you say, oh, there's a roof deck up there, and there's another roof deck on top of a roof deck up there with a stair going to it. So, I understand that those were pre-existing, non-conforming, but they're pretty extensive throughout the village. And I only took snapshot of between or around my clients. I didn't go all the way down Dune Road. I didn't go into Pond Point, and I didn't go all the way to number 1 Dune Road and take pictures.
You
of them.
understand that we've seen a lot of things that pre-exist. One that comes to mind is the driveway gates.
Yeah,
That's
right.
another one that
right.
would never be allowed. But
Right,
that's
we-
not,
and-
that's not an argument.
and-
That's not your argument. That's not gonna win.
Right, no, I understand, but again, I'm looking to try to correct this as best we can without, spending tons of money to, rip things out and kind of start all over again, so. And I think the spirit of the way the code was written and the reason why the code was written, and, we can only speculate now because the people who were involved in writing the code aren't here or not involved in the village anymore. It was to keep people, private and not to be obtrusive and be in your face. And I get that. And, the spirit of the code was,
This is a big deck. We could put a lot of people on it. It could be pretty.
it's not that big, Gary. It's not that big.
It's
It's not that big. It's way smaller than half the size of this room.
It's a big,
It's like you're not doing stadium seating in there. So yeah, a couple of tables and chairs and lounges and, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what's up there. I mean, you want photographs of what's up there. It's, I'll show you what's up there, but, I haven't had a chance to do that, but there's, you're not sitting 100 people up there. You don't have kids partying. It's not a rental house. I mean, Tobins have lived in this community she grew up here. So not like, they're going to go and start, partying and throwing water balloons down on their neighbors. So the kids are all grown and, have moved on to college.
I got it.
So that's,
I don't think I have anything else. Board members have it. Anyone out there, you folks have any comment on this application? No? All quiet. Nick, thank you very much.
thank you guys for considering.
Okay, so I'd like to make
Thanks, Nick.
I'd like to make a motion. We close this hearing for a decision at our next meeting.
Second.
Second by Joe. Real
Aye.
good.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
Okay, new applications. Tranquillo Associates LLC, 85 D Road. The applicant requests variances from 74.5C2 for a proposed non-movable structure dwelling in a coastal erosion hazard area where prohibited, from 197.8D for a proposed rear yard setback to the coastal dune of 64 feet, where the minimum required is 75 feet, and from 197.35C for proposed accessory deck with a rear yard setback to the crest of the dune of 50.5 feet, where the minimum required is 75 feet. Stuff.
Handouts.
All done by you.
I don't think I've ever seen one with 2 pools before.
Well, let me explain the application to you. Heather Wright for the applicant Tranquillo Associates. My office address is 48H Main Street, West Hampton Beach. The property is 83 Dune Road. Let me stop. Do you have to read the, do you have to? No, did you read the variances? Did I miss that? Oh, yes. Okay, never mind. I can proceed.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
No, I
sorry about
read it
that.
in already. You're on.
Okay, sorry. The property is in the R3 zoning district with a minimum required lot area of 20,000 square feet. The existing area is 89,750 square feet, 37,049 June. So what I'd like to do is break the presentation up into what currently exists at the property and then what we are proposing. And then I will go into 5 tests and answer the questions of the board pass it to the application. So currently, the property has a pre-existing one-story dwelling over a finished lower level and a rear deck. There's no certificate of occupancy on file for the property. The dwelling is entirely within the coastal erosion hazard area. The dwelling itself is 41.8 feet from the crest of the dune, and the existing deck is 16.4 feet from the crest of the dune. In 2009, the prior owner came before this board. They merged two lots to create the lot that exists today. In order to demolish that dwelling and construct a new two-story dwelling. That never happened, but the lot was merged. And the variance expired, but as part of that variance decision, the board had imposed a 25-foot non-disturbance buffer in front of the property. So you'll see that noted on the survey. So what we are proposing, and this process with the client sort of developed over time. At first, they were looking to sort of preserve some of what exists now at the property, and ultimately, they ended up deciding that they were going to, demolish this, hopefully demolish this home and construct a new two-story residence with the pool, the rear porch, and the deck. And as designed, a small portion of the dwelling, 243 square feet, will be located 64 feet from the crest of the dune. And then the deck and porch will be 50 feet from the crest of the dune. The construction within that 75-foot setback will utilize 2 piers and cantilevers, so it'll allow for dune restoration underneath underneath the structure. And you can see that from the first handout that is in your packet. 50% of the dwelling now will be outside of the coastal erosion hazard area. We are not asking for total side yard or front yard relief, and we meet the lot coverage requirements for R3 zoning. We're complying with FEMA, and we're installing a new septic system. So now let's turn to whether the benefit to the applicant outweighs any detriment to the community, and when we look at the 5 factors. So let's start with the character of the neighborhood. At the outset, we understand that this is, we're proposing a large house, a large dwelling. But we have to, I think it's important that we remember that this is also a very large lot. It's 2 lots that have been combined, that have been merged. And when the variance was granted in 2009, the board, I believe, probably imposed that buffer so that anything built on the property, it would minimize the impact of a larger structure built on the property. The buffer itself, like I said, it's a 25-foot buffer. It comprised 4,100 square feet at the front of the property. We believe our design further minimizes the impact on the character of the neighborhood. So like I said a few moments ago, we're meeting all other dimensional regulations, total side, front yard setback. Our proposed setbacks will be 23.4 from the west and 27.2 from the east. And we're moving the house as much as we can outside of the coastal erosion hazard area. So the proposed encroachment into the dune, we believe, serves really 2 purposes. One, it allows the applicant to sort of maintain a little bit of that feel and proximity to the ocean that they had with their existing dwelling and the way it's constructed now. But more importantly, it's a large lot that can accommodate a large house. But with that, they were kind of mindful of the mass associated with a larger house, right? So the front of the house will be shielded by the buffer, but the rear of the house is designed in sort of like a tiered fashion. So you have the second floor, then you drop to the pool, and then it just kind of comes in a little bit. So it protects the view shed from the neighboring properties, and it also reduces the mass that would exist if we were to relocate that square footage sort of to the back of the second floor of the house. And it also affords us an opportunity to revegetate the dune underneath, because with the two piers, we'll have that ability to revegetate. And if we weren't to have that sort of encroachment into the dune, we'd be asking to extend our current walk to the dune, and that would actually require more piers than more pilings than what we're proposing here for the construction. Um, so in terms of, alternatives, we're somewhat constrained by the buffer that we have in the front, and obviously the location of the coastal erosion hazard and the crest of the dune, right? So, oftentimes this board prefers to grant front yard variances so that you try to move the home as far outside of the from the dune as possible. But here, although the house itself is 89 feet to the property line, we're actually 64 feet to the buffer. So when you factor in your retaining walls and your septic system, we really don't have room to move the home further north. And, obviously, like any lot on the south side of Dune Road, whether the lot is 100 feet wide or 75 feet wide, you're constrained by the crest of the dune and the 75-foot setback. So we believe that this is the best location for for the design of this house and the proposed construction. And then in terms of substantiality, I think any substantiality really has to be looked at um, at the same time that we're removing all these nonconformities with the existing home, right? We're pulling it away from the dune. We are making it FEMA compliant. The house will have a certificate of occupancy. It will be outside the coastal erosion hazard areas as much as we can possibly move it out of that area. And we'll have dune restoration, which is obviously a benefit to the environment. And the whole project is a benefit to the environment because of the new sanitary system, the FEMA compliance, the dune restoration. So, I mean, that's sort of where how we came up with the design. We really did carefully think about what would be the best design for a lot of this size, which is unique, right? There's not many. I don't know if I can think of another lot on the south side of Dune Road that is as large as this lot, right? And so we were mindful of the fact that we would be constructing a larger home that certainly may, concern the adjacent property owners, right? They're living next to what is virtually a vacant lot right now, and all of a sudden they're going to have a new house there. So we were very careful to design it in a way that would sort of protect their view shed and also make it look like it's not such a massive structure next to them. So, have any questions? Go ahead.
2009 decision. I know you've read this, you've been through it, so you read this question, I'm sure. But one of the things about this, because I was on the board when they did this, I remember Mr. Bean, who was chairman at the time, emphasized for the record that this application is the model of any type of variance or reconstruction on Dune Road. When this variance was granted, there's only a coastal erosion variance that was granted, and the house was able to be constructed complying with the 75-foot setback, even with the 25-foot buffer. So why can't you just do what was already approved and just ask to have that variance reinstated?
Because that's not the design of the house that this applicant is looking for. While there are many applicants on this before this board on the south side of Dune Road who could potentially build something that didn't encroach into the setback, this board weighs the benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the community. And so here, this applicant is removing what is a significantly non-conforming structure and proposing something that they believe would be a benefit, something that they want, of course, but
You
something
know,
that
that was
would be
15 years ago that we went through this already, this property, Birch, when that happened. So we've already been through that. What's different now?
It's different now. It's a different applicant. It's a different set of plans.
Big house, building a really big house on the property.
But I think
understand
we
that,
have
but-
to remember that this property is a large lot, which can support a big house. So just because the applicant is putting up a big house shouldn't be, is,
Absolutely not. I agree with you. Why can't you conform with the parameters that we established 15 years ago?
well, we actually think it would be a detriment to the neighboring property owners if we did, because it would we're meeting GFA and we're meeting lot coverage, and so we would, if we relocated that square footage to a portion of the house, that, it would be, how am I saying it, up against the walls of the,
Yes.
like instead of where we've located the pool and the deck, if we were to add living space there, we're creating more of a mass that I think would have a greater impact on the neighboring property owners. So,
How so?
in terms of their view, looking out, they're gonna be able to look out and, it's a lower, they'll have an ability to look out onto a lower plane as opposed to having almost second floor that extends further south. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't understand.
That would be good.
Hi, everyone. Craig Arm, 130, what's my new address? From West Hampton, 132, Unit 4, Main Street, West Hampton Beach for the applicant. As part of the package, I believe it is on page. So if you look at between what's on, actually you can give yourself a copy of that one. Heather. So the aerial view, there's an aerial view with just the brown part of the house for the aerial. And then there's one after that, the next page that has some green that's shown. And so essentially when you look at the house, the way we designed it and proposed it with the brown structure, you can see where the existing house is. And we're proposing right in the middle of the property to extend this living room, dining room area out to where the existing house is. In taking the square footage of the house there, what it enables us to do is keep the main body of the house where the sort of a T-shaped structure, keep it back. So in doing that, your line of sight and the view shed actually is increased for the other houses, where if you turn the page and go to, if we were to take the space in the middle and redistribute it, design-wise, essentially we would create more of a U shape that would push the second floor out further on the edges and keep the pool and the deck in the middle. So what happens is your massing on the side, as opposed to the smaller section, actually gets increased.
Would you be
So-
compliant then?
We're still compliant. I'm sorry, we would be compliant then, correct. But it actually, as opposed to with this design, which it sort of gave privacy, obviously, for the clients, we actually felt it gave more privacy and less mass of a structure and appearance to the neighbors. So that's sort of what led some of the design. And obviously from what Heather mentioned and, hoping to keep a little bit of that, the view all the way out where the other house was.
I would have the same concern as Jerry on that extended porch area.
Yeah.
That's what we're speaking about, I think. The east and west, the neighbors to the east and west they're really not impacted by any view shed as you say, because they're a little far forward anyway. So the view is certainly, to the south. I don't see any interruption of that view, to any of these neighbors, east and west. I mean, would you consider taking that porch area and dropping it back to the decking?
I mean, we can certainly speak to the client, but what were you gonna say?
In terms of taking the porch area back to just for
Yeah,
clarity,
can you look at
just
this one?
so for the removing the porch and just bringing that, making that deck as opposed to porch, or
Well,
to bringing the whole,
well, to eliminate this section right here.
to eliminate the,
The living space.
the
pink?
enclosed house.
The pink part or the purple part or both?
Well, where it says proposed porch and the purple, whatever that purple is. Oh, I see, that's the living space, okay.
So this, yeah, this was the living space and this was the porch that came.
Yeah. I'd be more comfortable with, if you can work that space into what you have here. Like you said, it's a very big house as it is.
Understood, and obviously we have square footage and we can do that. It was a part of the, the reasoning was actually to minimize, the sizing of the widths for the neighbors, as well, and help with those, with the angles. Granted, it's not going to affect their shed just looking south towards the ocean. It doesn't block any southerly view. It's just really the cross views of the property that they accustomed to, because the house is very small, it's out on the dune, and it's sort of like a vacant lot, so our thought was make a large house feel a little bit smaller by not having it as much of a big rectangle, but creating sort of this T-shaped design to pull that living space away from the builders, essentially, so.
And we did it in such a way so that we could make sure there was dune restoration underneath of it. So it's a little different than those those accessory structures that sometimes are granted by this board to encroach into the dune. Here, we were conscious of lifting it, and, having it almost float over the dunes so that underneath it would, it can get restored and be better for the environment.
So is that possible? Is that a possibility going back to the client and asking?
What was that, Joe?
I just want to know if there was a possibility of going back to the client and asking, for that reduction.
Yeah. You don't have any room to move the house forward? That's also your,
We've actually,
you have to go into you have to go into the dune because you can't move it forward with the 25-foot buffer.
so there's we're not, we have the 75-foot compliance for the main body of the house, other than this one P section. And we're not encroaching into the 75 feet, to the front. With the buffer, we do have our sanitary, so we have been speaking with, the two adjoining neighbors, and I am going to talk to the engineer who designed the sanitary system. And see if we can move it a little bit from a quick phone call. They thought, there might be a foot or two. It didn't sound like anything substantial, but it did, they said maybe a little bit. So I am gonna look into that.
Okay.
and,
I can point out too, the covenant is not a type of covenant that could never be changed. There is some ability, it says for good cause shown, you could apply to the zoning board to amend the covenant. So if there became a difficulty that arose as a result of new sanitary system requirements, that could very well be a good cause. I'm just telling you that I think if the argument's gonna be made that there's zero way of moving the house even 10 feet forward or anything, you're gonna have to show that through some kind of calculations, because it does look like the front yard has the space between the parking area and the house, the space between, so. But keep in mind that there is some possibility of amending the covenant. It's not there's certain covenants you can never touch. This is not that kind of covenant.
I thought of that, and I agree with you. I think that there's some benefit to the covenant though as well. So, if the board were to want the covenant to be amended, we could certainly look into that. But I think given the size of the lot and the size of the home that we're proposing to build, the covenant does add some benefit to the character of the neighborhood, just giving it some screening.
Putting
I
it out
understand.
there that
I
it's
offer
a,
that too,
it's a
but-
possibility, and, you know, if you're gonna make the argument that there's there's no alternative of moving the house any closer to the street, you're gonna have to kind of figure that out and do the calculations to show that, because it's not, I don't think it's that apparent in the plans, and if the argument is that the covenant is impeding something, then that's at least something that's on the table. But just throwing that out.
I guess. The buffer exists, I guess the issue.
No,
is
I'm
whether-
saying, to me, looking at the site plan, it's not evident that there's no possible way to move the house forward. It sort of looks like there's quite a lot of room in the front. You can make the case for it, but you're gonna have to show the calculations for the parking area, why it's impossible to do any adjustment in a northerly direction to pick up the 200 something square feet that your clients are looking for.
Right. Like the- After discussions with the neighbors.
I think that's, you know, that's a good argument. I agree with you with the buffer, you know, I think it's important to keep the house, you know, back and with the buffer, but since the board has raised that, you know, those comments, I think that you should make your argument,
Agreed.
whatever it's gonna be.
And it's a big house. Isn't the property about 165 feet wide?
It is 100.
I'm ducking out, guys.
What
I'm
do you
sorry.
think? Okay,
Now, tell me why two swimming pools.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to
I can't go home without.
If you take the, like, the volume and square footage of, say, a 20 by 40 square foot pool, this isn't that different, but it's, they're only 14, 15 feet deep. And the larger one is 38, 39 feet, and then the other one's smaller. And just with the way the house shape and splitting it, one became more of like a place for sun decks and lounge, while
Okay.
the other's a little bit more for swimming. So it's
Okay.
more than.
Just like a design, just like a cabin.
Nice.
Cool design
Nice.
feature.
Or as you look out at both pools and then out to the water.
Okay.
I asked the same question.
Two pools. One's a big hot tub.
There you go.
I would do a cold plunge on one side. Right?
If you down and go swim under the house to the other side.
There you go.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
any comments from you folks? Come on up to the podium there, sir, and introduce yourself to us.
Good evening. My name is Dan Mink. I'm a neighbor. I live, Daniel Mink, M-I-N-C, 81 Dune Road, West Hampton Beach. I've been there for 23 years,
So you're just on the east side.
just to the
No,
east.
west side.
Just to the east,
The east side, okay.
just to the east.
Your house in between? Or you're the-
No, we built a new structure. There was a house on the dunes similarly situated,
No, your
almost-
house is directly next to this property?
directly next. I'm an adjacent property owner to the east. And we had a similar situation. We had a house on the, old house on the dune, almost exactly the same situation. It's odd here because I know the property really, really well. I know the dune really well. I know the area. I've studied it. I mean, I've lived there for 23 years, and I would urge the board to consider part of the application. Now, it's strange for a neighbor, but the deck part, because what you have to consider, and I don't think people that don't live on Dune Road or on the ocean understand, we don't have a backyard. We don't have 1 inch of backyard. Everybody in West Hampton that lives inland, they have a backyard, they have grass, they have trees, they have a patio, they have a deck, they have whatever they want. Dune Road, we pay for 200 and something feet in taxes all the way to the high water line, but we can't touch 1 inch of it. Okay, I've got a 4-foot walkway, but there's nowhere to sit. We're very, very constrained, okay? Now, I understand there's a code, there's a reason for the code. I'm not trying to say there's not. But on the one hand, you have a erosion control line. On the other hand, you don't want houses on the street, which is going to look like hell. And um, I can tell you that our dune at our location has grown 40 feet in the last 10 years. 40 feet. I have uh, a staircase that goes at the end of the dune, and there are 8 steps buried under the sand. That's how big, and how there's 200 feet from where my walkway starts to where the steps down to the beach start. So there's a huge amount of buffer there. And it's heavily vegetated. It's growing like crazy. There's trees all over, bushes. It is not one of the
And that-
vulnerable.
That's part of the purpose of what.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, there's a lot of space. There's 200 feet. So what they're proposing and what normally we're talking about doesn't even approach the first dune. It's 75 feet. But what I'm saying is, I don't want a structure. I'm not advocating, house or whatever. I'm just saying a deck is just living space, to enjoy the summer and compensate for the fact that you have no backyard. And that if you have a house, and you have guests and you have people and you want to have a table, you want to entertain, you just can't do it. So it's easy, if you don't live there and you don't live with it, you don't really understand it. But you don't understand that we don't put one foot. There's deer ticks. I have 5 deer that live on my property. They have 5 deer. That is a whole family. You can't really walk the property in that sense. So you can only use an elevated deck. So when they talk about extending a deck, I mean, to where there was a house already and there's 30-foot trees now that would, nothing would be affected. I'm just saying I support it because it's reasonable, have 0 impact, and 80% of the houses are 50 feet further or 60 feet further on the dune already. So it's not, I don't think that there's a reasonable danger to anything. I'm just objecting to a structure, to a roof or whatever, because, that's my position. But
Clear what you're against.
I'm sorry.
It's not clear what you don't.
I'm
like.
saying I support.
I know what you support. I'm not clear on what you don't.
Well, part of what they're asking for a variance over the 75-foot line is a covered area with a roof. In other words, an extension of the house
Right, living
that goes out, which part of it is a living area, which is air conditioned, whatever, heated. And then part of it is a covered roof for a porch, but it has a extension of the roof. So I'm just saying, look, it's fine if you grant it. I'm not going to die over it, but if I would prefer granting it without the roof and just being a deck, extension of the deck, which would literally have no impact, couldn't even be seen because the trees are way higher than the deck that's there. So you couldn't even visibly see the deck that they're talking about because it's in the middle of the property. They do have a very large piece of property, so that's the scope of it. And they're entitled to build a larger house. I'm not even complaining about anything. I'm just saying it's strange that I support it, but I'm supporting the deck part. I am not supporting the covered part because that would be higher at the roof height. But I think the deck would be minimal, and especially the way they designed it or whatever. So that's all. But welcome. Thank you for letting me speak. If you have any questions,
Thanks for taking the time to come down and share that.
no problem. Thank you.
So in this drawing, it's this piece right here? that
Yeah,
you're objecting
the
to,
blue and the orange exceed the 75 feet setback.
But
The
it's the,
blue and the orange.
but it's
So
the
I'm
roof.
saying the deck part is fine,
It's
but
this.
the roof part and the enclosure
Okay.
was what I thought was unnecessary. But in any event, it's a nice design. I'm not saying it's a nice design, not a nice design, but that's it. Thank
Alright,
you very
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can I take a moment of your time as well? My name is Ken Eckstein, and I reside in the home on 87 Dune Road, which is immediately to the west of the property. So, yes, we're both the neighbors. I'd like to just make a couple of observations. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Wright and Mr. Arm because they've been very courteous. They took the time to speak to me, and they've been very amenable to a conversation. I just saw this for the first time last week, and I got in touch with Ms. Wright and Mr. Arm after I saw it. So this is a little bit of a new development from my perspective. As Ms. Wright said, we've been living next to a vacant lot essentially for the last many years, and this is a very, very significant new development. I recognize it's a very large property, and ultimately, they absolutely have the right to build a home, and I expect it's going to be a large home. I can't say that I'm looking forward to the construction process. It's not attractive. Um, I don't, at this point, I don't have what I would consider to be a final view on what I think makes sense. I've spoken with Mr. Arm about the possibility of moving the house up closer to the street, which I know is a point that the gentleman made. The reality is there's a 25-foot buffer, which will make the house invisible to the street. So this is really only a function of how it affects the dune and how it affects the two neighbors, really. So it appeared to me that there is capacity to move the house up. My understanding is that's being entertained. Candidly, I have windows on the east side of my house, and I'm going to be affected almost no matter where they put the house. But I think on balance, it would be, I think, preferable if the house was moved up somewhat. I don't think it needs to be moved up a lot, but I think that that would be, to me, a useful development. The second item that I do have real concerns about is the covered portion, the T that goes out toward the dune. I appreciate Mr. Arm's comment that on balance, that may be better than loading up more space in the interior. I don't know whether that's in fact the case, but I do have a concern about having a large enclosed structure that juts out. And ideally, if the house could be moved up and if the covered structure were eliminated, I obviously would prefer less rather than more mass because it's a large, large house already. But those were the two items that right now struck me as requiring some further thought. What seemed to me, based upon the conversations and the dialogue tonight, I'd be interested in seeing some revised suggestions from the owner, and I'd be happy to react to those. And that hopefully this is going to be taken up again by the board, and maybe we can get comfortable with what they're proposing based upon the guidance that they've received tonight. But those are the two concerns that I have right now.
But let me ask you a question. Why would, why are you concerned about where the house is located now when you want to move to the north?
I'm the closer the closer it is to the dune, the more that the house will ultimately block various views that I have. I have a large window in my bedroom that looks out to the east, and I would prefer if that view were not blocked. And so ultimately moving it a little closer to the street would open up that view and not block it.
Now, did you have your house constructed or did you purchase it the way it was?
I purchased the house as it was and I renovated it.
Okay,
But I did not, so I did not construct it, but the house was there, but I renovated it
okay,
when I bought it about 6 years ago.
okay.
So I'm trying to I'm frankly trying to balance the pros and cons of different alternatives. And you can appreciate preserving the views out toward the ocean are a priority.
Well, you certainly have them. I mean, you're far forward, to the
Yeah.
south.
I-
by quite a
I have
bit.
great views.
Yeah.
I have great views.
I don't
But-
think this is gonna impact you, you know, in the proposed location at, you know, at all, really.
It's just, there's one portion there's one window in particular that
Okay.
would be affected by that structure that goes out. And I think moving it back a little bit would alleviate that.
Right, okay.
Those were my observations, and as I said, I'm hoping to see some revisions from the owner, and I'm happy to look at those. Come back next time.
Our job is to minimize the variance requested, and when you're talking about it, it's really the variance they are requesting.
Correct.
That is the issue before us.
I appreciate that. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You guys done? Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and if you guys are done, right, no more further questions for the applicant, I go ahead and make a motion that we, hold over this application for all purposes next month. Second by Jim. All right, good? Favor, we're good, okay. Good night. All righty. My next one was Evan and Jennifer Untruthy on 7th October, but we do have we hold that over. For our next meeting, so I'd like to go ahead and make the motion, we hold it over for all purposes, I have a second by Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Good. Righty. Lawrence Francis Trust, 77 Library Avenue. Applicant requests a variance for 197-29-1A to reconstruct and expand detached accessory garage in the front yard where prohibited.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Sigismundi of Nicholas Vero Architect, PC, right here in West Hampton Beach, 120 Mill Road. So, yeah, the board, the reason we're before you again, actually, this was already approved. Big rainstorm that we had, I guess, about, 2 months ago now. The water had come up about a foot, maybe more, past the slab of the structure. So we said, you know what? Let's take this chance while we're here before we do construction and put the second story that was approved. And, because the bottom framing, was subjected to water, why don't we redo the first floor walls, do 4 courses of CMU, so that everything below that is, materials that are non-weather related. It doesn't matter if they get wet or soaked or anything like that. To provide extra protection for what seems to be, more recurring happenings of flooding all over the island.
Okay. Do you want to just replace the walls? What does that have to do with the second story?
Nothing. Everything is going to stay the same, except we have the first 4 walls weren't being replaced originally. It was just the second story was going on it. So now what we'd like to do is replace the first floor walls because we need to do the first, 4 courses of CMU about 32 inches. But obviously
You're not taking this garage down, build it.
well, you have to because you can't replace the lower section of the
So
wall.
let's replace lower section of the wall. I'm looking at that as interior sheetrock. Now what you're talking about is tearing the garage down and starting over and putting the second story on.
Yeah, the existing slab would stay and we would do CMU block 4 courses up. And then
I don't read the
framing on that.
application. Read the application that way.
Where does
See,
the second story addition fit into this replacing the slab?
We're not replacing slab would stay.
We're taking it down to the slab. This says adding a second story storage above the existing detached garage. Replacing the existing first story walls bottom 40 inches. Section used in block and the upper portion was down on frame.
Yes.
I don't read that as taking it down to the slab.
Well, you couldn't replace the bottom 40 inches of the first floor wall without taking the wall out.
The application is to add a second story.
Correct. That was the initial reason why we had to come in, was to add a second story.
Yeah.
On it. That was approved. But then when it was discovered, all right, we're having a flooding issue, we'd like to replace the first story walls. I was advised I'd need to come to you again to have this approved.
I think this application is very unclear. Taking down the structure to the slab, is what it say,
Yes,
and rebuild the garage with a second story.
yes.
It doesn't say that. It says you're adding a second story storage above an existing 24 by 14-foot garage.
Well, the application is to be able to add that space there.
We're not architects, okay? We
Sure.
read the application the way it is.
Sure.
Okay, we have people come in, they want to put a second story. We just approved one of those tonight. It's happening on Old Riverhead Road, where they wanted to come in and put a second story on the building.
Yes.
Okay, that was how it was advertised, and we went through the hearing and did that. I mean, this says adding a second story storage of an existing detached garage. Once you take it down to the slab, you no longer have an existing garage.
I do see your point. I totally see your point.
We have to
At
reduce
the
that.
time of demolition, yes, there
We
will be
gotta
no
reduce that.
existing garage, but as of right now, there's an existing garage. Yes,
Without
But-
a second story.
without a second story. So yes, I see what you're saying.
So,
Was this advertised correctly then? I mean, if I'm confused on this, how is?
Yeah, it was, well,
I'm just wondering if we have to, re-add it.
For the
What do you think?
applicant request variance from 197 to reconstruct and expand a detached accessory garage in the front yard where prohibited. So originally, when we advertised it, the denial that was included here was from last year. What we advertised when it came to my attention that we were reconstructing the whole thing, that's what we advertised for recently. So when the actual building permit application came in, and, previous discussion was just adding a second story. If you're gonna take down the whole first story, it has to go back to this board. So that's, we advertised it as reconstructing a garage with expanding a second story.
That's what it is.
Part of the original testimony was, we don't wanna rebuild the garage, we're gonna put the second story over the existing garage, therefore it's in the front yard, that's, so. But now that you're gonna tear the whole thing down, sometimes it's a different calculus. We do have we talked about the proximity to the marshland on this particular property and the grade dropping off as you go to the south end, but it's still
We have a variance on this property.
correct. I don't want
granted
the situation where you're all,
For this structure.
you drive down there and the garage is completely gone and you go, wait a second, I thought we just approved the second story.
is there a copy of the determination that we
Yes.
approved?
The application says that there wasn't. Has a prior variance, special use permit, or interpretation ever been applied for this property? And it says no. So that's the application, and then I have, it's supposed, huh?
I remember.
Well, remember it, yeah, but it's not here, so that's what I'm confused about this. Add a second story to existing, add second floor storage to existing detached garage. First story walls due to flooding, okay. I've had flooding in a building where we had to cut out the bottom sheet rock and replace that, so.
And surveys from 2019. So there was never a second story in the original variance.
In the variance that was approved most recently by the board for this was to approve the second story. The second story was obviously never built. Because literally right after it was approved and we had our permit and we're ready to construct, that flooding happened. Also, if I could just go back to the discussion we were having the first time around with the variance on why it was granted to do the second story and leave it there, was the only other spot where you could do this would be further south on the property, which is actually a lower elevation, which would just exacerbate the whole flooding issue. And it's why everything was approved to just put the second story there.
So I'd like to see the determination, the approval.
Well, the application's incomplete. So, the way with the variance, it doesn't matter, because you can't build in the summertime anyway,
Correct.
right? So nothing's gonna happen before September, so we're not holding anything up.
No.
But I'd like you to go back and reword this.
And
Hey,
that's my fault.
crystal
I
clear.
took the first one I
Be
did
I want
and
to be
just
clear on
edited it and
this,
sent it in.
okay, and then I would like a copy of the variance submitted. Like it's supposed to, the application is incorrect, but that's not, so it's a little confusing to go through all of this, so.
I'm sorry,
So what we can
that's
do-
on my,
Yeah, we
fault.
can do it,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not gonna hold you up as far as your building goes, but assuming this gets approved, but let's just, let's get the application right.
Sure.
Okay, come back, let's submit that and get that, so we have everything on the record,
Okay,
okay?
sure.
Now, while you're at it, assuming this is gonna go somewhere, why don't you, add a landscaping component to this also? You know, since it's, only 20 feet from the street, and it's gonna be a much higher elevation, visually.
So there's already very tall bushes on the street side of this building. Like, right now, you can only see the tip of the roof. So, I mean, I don't know how we could add even taller bushes than what's there.
Right, bring some, pictures and things like that, because that's gonna be something that I'll be speaking to, I know at the next meeting.
Oh, mind you, I'm sort of new to this area of being before you. Do you not get submitted with the ARB material that has all the photos? No. No? Okay. So sure, I'll make sure to get that.
Really update, we have a 5-year-old survey too, so you have that, have the surveyor revise that also.
Okay,
We do require a current survey, and as Jim pointed out, the survey is 5 years old.
let's say it was the survey I used on the approval last time, but yes, I'll have them
Okay.
updated. So,
The only thing that comes to this board is what you submit in your application.
got it, thank
Or
you.
If any neighbors send the correspondence, and that goes into the record as well, but we don't assemble extra materials for this board from other boards.
Understood. So update the survey, add ARB photos.
The dimensions of the structure are not changing, right?
The dimensions of the structure aren't changing. The only thing that would change on the structure itself is, it, originally, the staircase was gonna be inside the structure to get to the storage. But once you do this, the storage is, the building's so thin. Once I add that extra 8.5 inches because of putting CMU block, I'm sorry, 11 inches from putting CMU block, I'm not able to put a compliant staircase inside. It would end up having to have a turn and a landing, which would then make it, it's also not very long. It'd be hard to fit a car in there. So move the staircase to the outside back of the building, that runs up along the back of the building. I do have plans there if you wanted to see it.
Well, you'll submit those.
I would submit
Sure,
those.
of course.
Submit that for us also. Okay, because that's another change that we made.
Now, you said to the back of the building,
What faces the marshland, not what faces neighbors or the
to the
street.
side of the building.
It technically would be the side, yes.
So visually, you'd see that staircase if you were coming up Library Avenue.
You'd see the top landing if you were on the road, yeah.
Okay,
Just the landing and the railing,
right.
yes.
Okay.
But they have no neighbor to that side, it's a marsh.
I don't have anything else right now. I think we gave you your homework.
You
okay,
did.
and then
I appreciate
clear
your
that up with you.
patience and your advice.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Have a great evening.
We'll hold this over for purposes for our next meeting
Next month.
in July.
Sure.
Right? Okay?
All right.
Good,
Thank you.
everybody's good?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a
Have a
good
good
evening.
night. Okay, that concludes our business for tonight. I'd like to make a motion that we close our meeting. By
Second.
Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye,